This story begins like so many others, quietly, tenderly, and full of promise. Emily and Ryan had been together for almost 3 years, that stage where love is no longer about late night phone calls, but about picking a dining table together or arguing over whether to get a cat. They had just moved into a small apartment in Seattle, a cozy little place where you could hear the rain tapping softly on the windows every morning. Ryan was the gentle, thoughtful type, a quiet software engineer, punctual, introverted, the kind of man who never forgot to ask, "Did you eat yet?" Emily was the opposite. She was light, the kind of woman who could start a conversation with a stranger, who kissed first, who made every room feel warmer just by walking in. And maybe that was the problem. She was in love, but she didn't feel loved the way she needed. They still laughed, still talked, still posted happy photos. But somewhere between the quiet evenings and Ryan's glowing laptop screen, Emily began to feel something missing. Not because Ryan didn't love her, but because she no longer felt seen, no longer felt wanted. And then, one day, he appeared. Cole, the neighbor across the hall. He was everything Ryan wasn't. Strong, rugged, a little wild. The kind of man whose gaze reminded Emily she was still a woman. Someone who could still make a heartbeat quicken with just one look. She didn't know that moment would change everything. Because sometimes betrayal doesn't begin with an action, but with a glance, the kind that makes you forget what's right and what's wrong. That morning, Seattle was draped in a soft rain, the cold, endless kind that makes you want to stay curled up in bed. Emily hurried out, coffee in hand, on her way to a doctor's appointment. When the elevator doors opened, Cole stepped in. He was wearing a motorcycle helmet, the faint smell of gas and metal clinging to him, his eyes calm and steady, like nothing in the world could ever rush him. The doors closed. Silence filled the small space. Emily smiled politely, murmured a quiet "hi," and then she felt it, his eyes on her. Not the casual glance of a neighbor, but something deliberate, focused. His gaze brushed over her hair, lingered on her collar, then met her eyes, and stayed there. 1 second, 2 seconds, enough to make her heart race. If it had been any other man, she would have felt uncomfortable. She'd brushed off coworkers' flirty comments before, frowned at lingering looks in the office. But Cole was different. His eyes didn't make her feel exposed. They made her feel seen. It was dangerous and irresistible. When the elevator reached the garage, they stepped out together. He smiled and said something simple. "You look busy this morning." But his voice, low, slow, with a rough edge, seemed to scratch gently at her thoughts. She smiled back, and for the first time in a very long time, Emily felt something inside her awaken. All day, Emily couldn't focus. Her mind kept drifting back to his gaze. The smell of gasoline, the way he spoke, simple, unpretentious, effortless. Cole didn't belong to the tidy, predictable world Ryan lived in. He was free, untamed. A man who didn't seem to care whether anyone understood him at all. She told herself, "It was just a look, Emily." But deep down, she knew it wasn't just a look. It was the moment she felt alive again after years of playing the good girlfriend, the polite woman who always knew her place. She had no idea that when the elevator doors closed behind them that morning, another door had quietly opened, one that led to a place where instinct, temptation, and guilt lived only a breath apart. That afternoon, the golden light slanted down the long hallway of the apartment building. Emily stood before the mirror, fixing her hair, spraying a little perfume, the one she usually saved for special occasions. She told herself she just needed some air, a short walk to clear her head. But she knew what she was waiting for. She heard the low rumble of Cole's motorcycle in the basement garage, the echo of his boots on concrete, the metallic click of his door unlocking. She stepped out just as he turned the key. "Oh, what a coincidence," she said, offering a faint, almost nervous smile. Cole looked up, a flicker of surprise softening into calm. "Yeah," he said quietly. "What a coincidence." It was nothing, just a few words. But somehow the air between them grew heavier. They talked about small things, the weather, work, nothing that mattered. Yet every tone, every glance, every inch of space between them seemed to shrink. When Cole asked if she wanted to come in for a quick drink, Emily knew she should say no. Every rule, every shred of reason screamed that this was a line she should never cross. But she nodded anyway. Just for a few minutes, she said. The kind of lie we tell ourselves when we already know the truth. Cole's apartment was sparse and raw, just two worn leather chairs and a simple bed. It was nothing like Ryan's world of order and glowing screens. Here, there was the smell of sweat, of gasoline, and of something real, something dangerously honest. Her heart pounded as she stepped inside, each breath feeling like a step closer to the edge. Cole turned to her, smiling. Not too friendly, not too cold, just enough to feel like a dare. He moved closer, and for one brief, charged moment, their hands brushed. The world went silent. No words, just breath, heat, the ache of everything they'd both been holding back. She didn't resist, didn't think, didn't hesitate. She kissed him like she had never truly kissed anyone before, with all the hunger she'd buried beneath routine and restraint. Everything exploded, desire, guilt, and something wild that made her forget it all. Ryan, the quiet apartment across the hall, the calm life she once called love. When it was over, they sat in silence. The last light of day spilled across the wall, uneven and soft. And in that stillness, Emily felt as if she'd just awakened from a forbidden dream. But instead of regret, she smiled. A small, quiet smile. Almost peaceful. For the first time in a very long time, Emily felt alive, desired, seen, touched by something raw and painfully real. But like the sunset, that feeling was never meant to last. After the second time they met, something inside her began to change. It was no longer the trembling thrill of a secret affair or the dizzy sweetness of forbidden excitement. It was fear. A quiet, exhausting fear that clung to her like darkness in a room with no light. She started waking up in the middle of the night, heart racing, sweat soaking her back. Every time she heard Cole's motorcycle rumble in the parking lot, she froze. Every knock at the door, every message from Ryan, every soft, "Are you okay?" filled her with terror, because deep down she feared he already knew. Around Ryan she still smiled, still talked, still cooked dinner like always. But inside, she was someone else. Dinner was the worst. Ryan would talk about work, and she'd force a smile while her mind drifted somewhere far away. She'd look at him, this kind, trusting man, and feel her heart twist with guilt. She began avoiding his eyes, working late, staying out longer, growing quieter. And even when Ryan wrapped his arms around her from behind, she stiffened. Not out of rejection, but because in that moment she realized she no longer felt worthy of being loved that way. One night, unable to bear it any longer, Emily drove to her mother's house. The moment she stepped inside, she broke down, tears spilling uncontrollably. Her mother sat in silence, listening. No interruptions, no judgment, just the heavy, quiet sadness of someone watching her child fall apart. When Emily finished, the room was still. Her mother finally spoke, voice trembling. "What have you done, Emily?" she whispered. "There are some mistakes you can't wash away, no matter how many tears you cry." Emily bowed her head. Her mother turned away, took a long breath, and said softly, "Promise me something. No matter what happens, you will never do this again." Never, Emily nodded. The promise came out in a broken whisper, every word cutting through her like glass. Before she left, her mother held her hand tightly, tears glistening in her eyes. "I won't tell Ryan," she said quietly, "but you need to understand something. Hiding the truth doesn't protect him. It only means you're running from it." On the drive home, Emily wept, the sound of the engine blending with the frantic beating of her heart. Her mother had forgiven her, at least in part, but forgiveness brought no peace. It only made her see more clearly the deep, unbridgeable distance between who she used to be and who she was becoming. 2 months later, on a chilly Saturday morning, Emily was awakened by noises in the hallway: the squeak of wheels, muffled voices, the scrape of metal. She walked to the door and opened it just a crack. Cole was there, carrying the last of his boxes out. Beside him sat a small silver truck, tailgate open wide. In that moment, she froze. Everything around her blurred, until all that remained was the image of the man who had once derailed her life, slowly walking away. Cole didn't look up. He didn't say a word. He simply pressed the button, and the elevator doors slid shut. Ding. A small sound, but to Emily it felt like release. Her knees gave out. She collapsed onto the floor, tears spilling freely. Not because she'd lost him, but because she was finally free. Like a prisoner seeing the gate open for the first time, she felt a rush of relief so sharp it almost hurt. Painful and yet sweet. She sobbed, not for love, but for forgiveness. A forgiveness she didn't deserve, but had somehow been given. That afternoon, Emily went for a walk with Ryan around the lake, something they used to do often. He talked about his new project, about maybe renewing their lease for another year. She nodded, held his hand, and smiled. A real smile, for the first time in months. That night, after Ryan had fallen asleep, Emily lay still beside him, watching his face under the soft light seeping through the curtains. The face of the man she had once lost, not to someone else, but to her own emptiness. She whispered, barely audible, "Thank you for still being here." From that day on, Emily changed. She took better care of Ryan, listened more closely, cooked his favorite meals, turned off her laptop early to watch movies with him, and she started saying the words she'd long forgotten. "I missed you." No one knew that behind those gentle gestures was a scar, a secret buried deep, silent but not gone. Sometimes it stirred in her dreams. In those dreams, she was back in the elevator, hearing the doors close, feeling herself fall once again into the darkness of her own making. But each time she woke, Emily reminded herself she'd been given a second chance, and not everyone gets one. For her, the miracle wasn't that Cole left, it was that he left before everything collapsed. Because if he had stayed even a little longer, Emily might have lost everything: her love, her trust, and the last piece of herself. I've read countless stories like Emily's. Love that begins in faith and ends in an emptiness nothing can fill. But what haunts me most isn't the moment she betrayed him. It's the moment she stopped being honest with herself. Because betrayal doesn't start in a hotel room or a stranger's bed. It begins the moment your heart stops belonging to the one beside you. Women in love often long to feel protected, to be guided, to rest in the strength of someone who makes them feel safe. But when a man becomes too gentle, too predictable, too safe, somewhere inside, they start craving something else, something wild, primal, alive. And tragically, that very feeling of being alive is often what ends up destroying everything they once lived for. Emily didn't love Cole, at least not in the way love is meant to be. What she wanted wasn't him. It was the feeling she'd lost, the thrill of being desired, the warmth of being seen, the rush of feeling her heart race again. And Cole, with all his rough edges and raw energy, was nothing more than a mirror, reflecting back the loneliness she refused to face. I've told many women in therapy, guilt doesn't save you. It only keeps you in the dark longer, hiding, pretending, until you forget who you really are. Emily was no different. She thought keeping the secret was a way to protect Ryan. But in truth, she was only protecting the version of herself she wanted to believe still existed. And men like Ryan, the gentle ones, the quiet ones, they're the ones who love the deepest and hurt the most. If he ever found out, his pain wouldn't come in anger or shouting. It would come in silence. And that silence would be the cruelest punishment of all. Betrayal isn't just the loss of a relationship, it's the moment you betray the part of yourself that knows what's right. You choose feeling over honesty, passion over responsibility, pleasure over love. And in the end, what's left isn't happiness, it's emptiness. I don't judge Emily. I only hope that whoever's listening to this story will look within themselves to understand that staying honest isn't something you do for someone else. It's something you do for the peace of your own heart. And maybe that's what I want to leave you with after Emily's story. None of us are perfect. We all have moments of weakness, mistakes that make us bow our heads in regret. But growing up, truly growing up, doesn't mean never falling. It means having the courage to look at yourself after you've fallen, to say, I was wrong, to take responsibility and to live truthfully, even when honesty cost you something you once held dear. Because love, no matter how beautiful, can't save a dishonest heart. Only dignity and truth can. When you lose honesty, love becomes a performance. And no performance lasts forever. Truth, though painful, has the power to heal. Lies, no matter how sweet, are only temporary anesthesia. I believe that if Emily had the courage to face Ryan, she might have lost him, but she would have found herself again. And sometimes, finding yourself matters more than keeping someone else. Because real love cannot survive where self-respect no longer exists. I share Emily's story not for judgment, but as a mirror for your own heart. If you're in a relationship today, ask yourself, am I really here, or just staying because it's what I'm used to? And if you've made mistakes, remember this. The past can't be erased, but it can be transformed. Every day you choose honesty, even just a little, you take one step closer to the peace you've been searching for. Love doesn't save us. It only reflects who we truly are. The only things that can save us are truth, integrity, and the courage to love with honesty and clarity. If this story spoke to you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe love can survive betrayal? Would you tell the truth, or stay silent to protect the one you love? I want to hear your answer. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, because somewhere out there, someone might need this reminder today. Sometimes just a single whisper of truth can save a heart that's on the edge of breaking. I'm Veronica Hale, and this is Love and Lies TV, where we don't just talk about love, we learn how to be honest enough to be truly loved.